Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at Mysterio. And we're going to try and find out whether he is actually a new God tier champion or it's all just smoke and mirrors and he's nothing more but an average addition to the contest. So first of all we're going to measure out his damage output. We're going to be using this beast in Uncollected and we're going to be comparing his damage output with few other tech champions in the game just to kind of figure out where he stands. Brief explanation how Mysterio works is quite simple really. Every time you finish a combo with medium you gain one of your counters. You can gain up to maximum 3 counters. Also if your Mysterio is awakened you gain counters over time depending on his signature level, and then you can use these counters to kind of for certain different abilities. With heavy attack you can use them to poison opponent and prolong the poison. With light hits you can put a heal block on opponent. Level 1 and level 2 have certain utilities. Most importantly, level 3 gives you a massive fury, an attack increase, and also increases your poison damage by 300%. You can poison opponent while your heavy attacks consuming all of your counters, and that extends the poison duration basically. As we saw here, we took Beast down in 41 hits. After level 3 he went down fairly quickly. So Mysterio is in fact a champion that does hide majority of his damage output behind the level 3, and I'm not a big fan of that. However, let's see how he compares against the 3-star Yondu. As we all know, Yondu is by far not the hardest hitting tech champion, and we can see how many hits does it take for Yondu to take down this beast. And later on we're going to take a look at Stark Spider-Man and Star-Lord, and then we're going to kind of draw conclusions where he ends up being. As you can see here, 41 hits in and Beast is on 60% health. So we can already say that Mysterio is going to have pretty much more than double the damage output that Yondu has. But is it really that great when you're comparing it against the best damaging champions in game of tech class? So that is what we're going to find out, whether he is in fact a god tier damage dealer. And here we're about to finish off the fight. I believe it's going to take us about 102 hits if I'm not mistaken. And then we're going to take a look at Stark Spider-Man. Now Stark Spider-Man is a really heavy hitter, but he still isn't like the hardest hitter in the game. But still, let's just take a look at that. So first of all we're going to build up our poise charges so we can actually kind of mince properly in this beast. Also a note, I'm using same mastery setup and same synergy setup in all of these videos, and the synergy setup was actually designed to help Mysterio out more so than anyone else, just because he relies on getting level 3 so much. There are plenty of power gain synergies and also some of the unique Mysterio synergies. However, here we see Stark Spider-Man go to work. Unfortunately, level 2 we only had 1 crit. However, still 23 hits in. Beast is at well, he's nearly dead at this point. So it took us 33 hits. So Stark Spider-Man can out damage Mysterio fairly easily. That's quite substantially. And now let's go and see how he fares against Star-Lord, because this is kind of like a medium level fight. So obviously for any fight that is longer than this, Star-Lord would win this quite easily just because of his ramp up potential, because Star-Lord's gonna hit exponentially harder and harder up until 400 combo. But obviously you do not get to see that damage from Star-Lord in vast majority of the fights, and this is just kind of like a standard example where opponent's PI is about 3-4 times larger than yours, so that is kind of fairly realistic for endgame content if you're using 5-star rank 4, rank 5. And we're going to check out how our boy Star-Lord does. Now I am cutting a few combos short here and there just because that is exactly how Mysterio plays. You do want to basically finish your combo with a medium in order to gain your charge as fast as possible, in order to access your longer poison duration while your heavy attacks. Now I could be throwing heavy attacks with Star-Lord as well to kind of mimic Mysterio's playstyle, and in that case I think the fight would already be over. However, 45 hits, it's pretty much the same damage output in medium level fight as Star-Lord has, and as we all know, that is definitely not the area where Star-Lord shines. Star-Lord shines in the longest fight. So next fight is against Abomination in Act 4, and now we're gonna use this fight to show a few things. First of all, while Mysterio's helmet is not cracked, he is poison immune. and he's immune to ability accuracy reduction, and that is awesome. That is good piece of utility. He's essentially another poison immune character which can occasionally be poisoned under certain set of conditions. However, we're also going to see that because we're unable to poison opponent, our damage is going to suffer by quite a bit. So before we were dealing basically with 40k health pool, 10k PI, beast, and took him down in 42 hits. Now we are going to be fighting Abomination, and Abomination, as we all know, is poison immune. Therefore our damage is going to suffer, and it's going to suffer quite a bit here. So as you can see, we're already 42 hits against an opponent whose PI is almost half of the previous one. So we can see just how much that poison was helping Mysterio. And in order to land that poison, you need to land a heavy attack, which is another kind of character trait that I heavily dislike in many of the champions, just because how often we are facing limber nodes, how often we are facing stun immune nodes, and I'm definitely not a fan of Mysterio relying that much on his poison damage. One of the coolest things about Mysterio though is his heal block. He places a heal block whenever he lands 4th light attack in his combo. So basically when you finish a combo with a light attack, you heal block opponent. And the heal block lasts for 1 second plus 2 additional seconds for each of the charges that we have on Mysterio. So typically it's about 7-second long heal block. And that is long enough to pretty much heal block opponent throughout entire fight. Now, in order to do that though, you do need to kind of say goodbye to a fair amount of Mysterio's damage and some of his utility. However, I still think the fact that it is passive heal block, it can be shrugged off, it can be applied to debuff immune characters, is amazing. It is fairly unique at this point in game, and I think it's probably the best thing that Mysterio has going for him. He is unique in that aspect, how easily he accesses heal block, how long he can maintain it in opponent, and the fact that it is passive is invaluable. Another hidden piece of Mysterio's utility is, while Spider-Verse characters are poisoned, they are unable to evade. Now, that might seem like a fairly interesting piece of utility, because we know how well that Spider-Man's can't evade is working out for Venom. However, the fact that it is only happening while the poison is active does mean few things. It does mean that you need to keep your charges up in order to kind of like have as long as poison duration as you can. But still, you will not manage to have 100% uptime on that, so there will be times when they can evade. Also, that implies you need to be able to land a heavy attack, and against Spider-Man characters, that pretty much means you need to be able to parry them, because if you just block bait a heavy attack and try and punish their heavy attack, they can always evade and punish you instead. So it is kind of a nice to have. However, there are going to be many situations where it's kind of unnecessary, because if you can parry a Spider-Man, you can just hit them while the parry is going on. And yeah, Spider-Man that can be parried aren't typically dangerous for most part. Anyways, he also has a relatively okay power control on his level 2. The base idea is same as all Mysterio abilities. Shoot off level 2, it consumes all your charges and places kind of like a power drain over time effect on opponent. That kind of keeps their power in check. However, that power drain is not strong enough to consider Mysterio a good power control champion, just because A, it's on level 2, so it's fairly far away, and it is reliant on charges. So if you choose to power control opponents, you once again sacrifice other aspects of Mysterio's utility. And as we can see here, we are going to be able to take that magic down. However, we had to trigger Limbo on multiple occasions and push her past bar of power. It's a nice to have, kind of handy piece of utility, but it is not really going to be enough to call a Mysterio good power control champion. And unfortunately, his level 1 for most part is pretty much useless. It kind of gives you like a little bit of a safeguard. If you get hit in the face, you're going to regenerate 70% of that damage you would take instead, but it has no extra damage associated to it, and it consumes all your charges. For most part, it's not worth it, and your game plan should pretty much never involve getting hit in the face. So here at the end of the video, we're going to have a couple of fights in Act 5.1 on Life Transfer Node, and I'm going to give you kind of my overall conclusions about where I would rate Mysterio at. So let's start with the positive. he does have above average damage output, which is cool. It's not the best, it's not close to being the best, but it's not bad either. So he can hit fairly hard. Unfortunately, that fairly hard hitting thing is hidden behind the level 3, and I severely dislike characters like that for most part. Like in case of Namor, at least you can do a lot of burst special attacks afterwards, but in case of Mysterio, you get your damage increase once, you can't stack it, and you have to build up to it again and again. And another great thing about Mysterio is his heal block. His heal block is awesome. It's passive, it's long, it's easily accessible. It's probably one of the best heal blocks in game. And yeah, I really like that mechanic. Unfortunately, if you want to constantly keep opponent under heal block though, you do kind of like say goodbye to a lot of your damage. Now, being poison immune and being immune to ability accuracy reduction is obviously cool things. Having tiny bit of power control doesn't hurt either. So overall, I think it's a relatively decent kind of set of abilities. However, let's talk about the negatives of Mysterio. And there are quite few of them. So first of all, I don't like that his damage is hidden under special 3 attack. Lastly, I do not like how you have to kind of pick a lane and stick with it in Mysterio. If you want a great damage, you're not going to be able to heal block opponent constantly. If you want any power control, you're not going to be able to access your great damage. In order to access your poisons, you need to be able to land heavy attacks. Typically, for most opponents, it means you need to be able to parry them, or you can take a lot of block damage. So I do think there are a lot of circumstances where Mysterio will not perform as people expect him to. And he's going to be fairly tricky to use in many kind of non-standard, your cookie cutter fights where you're allowed to parry, you're allowed to do everything. So is he a god tier champion? In my eyes, hell no. Is he decent? Yeah, he's good. He's not bad, he's not awful. But are there many champions that do pretty much the same things he does and do it better? Yes, for sure. His damage is good, it's not exceptionally great. His heal block is awesome, though. Heal block might be the one thing where he shines, but does that warrant him a god tier status? No. His power control sucks. He's level 1. He's fairly useless. His poisoning ability is great because we don't have too many champions that can poison opponents easily. But again, it's on heavy attack, and you can't always land your heavy attacks easily. And because of the way his counter mechanic works, you kind of feel that you're being punished for using his abilities because you can't use other abilities in the same fight in a short period of time easily or effectively. So, god tier, in my eyes, definitely not. Someone that I'm desperate to add to my roster just because he might become useful at some point? No. His heal block is cool, but that's pretty much the only thing that puts any value of this character in my eyes. I obviously do realize I'm fairly privileged with the size of my roster, but honestly, looking at this champion, there is nothing special about him that would make me want to acquire him desperately. So there we go. If you're looking for the next game-breaking champion, next Ghost, next Corvus, no, this is not the place where you find it. So you can save your units, save your crystal spins, you can save your fingers if you're planning to grind for him, because he's alright, but you can definitely do better. But that is going to be me done for today. I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, do not forget to like, share it, subscribe it, and all the good stuff. I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!